Okay, now let's look at another question here, but check this one out. It's kind of interesting. You now have a parabola that originally was opening down. Okay, which means your parabola looks something like this. So remember, what are we going to? We're eventually going to get a parabola with an absolute value function that's going to actually be opening upwards. So take a look at this. It's no longer this section which is flipped. It's this section which will be flipped and this section which will be flipped, which makes this piecewise all the way down here just a little bit different. All right, so how do we go about doing this? Same old, same old, same old, same old. Same thing that we've done every single time. Find the intercepts. So, okay, let's find the y-intercept. The y-intercept happens when x equals to 0. So that's 0. That's 0. So your y-intercept on the original graph would have to be equal to -3. So let's put that down. Okay, so here's our graph right here. -3 would have been 1, 2, 3. There's the -3. There's where the intercept would have been. Okay, now let's go out and find the x-intercepts now, which will become our critical points. X-intercepts happen when y equals to 0. Okay, so x-intercept happens when y equals to 0. So we have 0 equals to -x squared minus 4x minus 3. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole thing, bring it over to this side. So I'm going to get x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals to 0. Look at that. All I did was just change this whole thing. And I know what you're saying. You're probably saying, well, why can't you do that from the negative? I will. I know that that's going to be opening downwards. But I want to be able to just PSA this really quick like. And my PSA, of course, here is two numbers together to multiply to give me 3 that add up to 4, which is going to be x plus 4 x plus 3, x plus 1. That's what's going to give this to us. That's 3 and 1, right? Because 3 times 1 gives us 3, 3 plus 1 gives us 4. So if you solve this, your x has to be equal to -3 and -1. So check this out. There's the -1. 2, 3, there's the -3. And remember, this is opening downwards. So we know that this part of the graph is going to be going like this. And of course, we can figure out the mirror image of this because we start here and go over 1 and it's down 1, 2, 3. So let's start here, go over 1 and down 1, 2, 3. There's the other portion of the graph. The only thing that we're missing is we're missing that beautifulness, which is right here, which is what is the vertex. Let's find out that vertex. That vertex has to be at -2. Okay, so let's plug that in right into our original graph. An original graph which was -x squared minus 4x minus 3, right? Okay, so that's this graph right here. Ta-da. Pop in the -2. Let's watch what happens. Minus a -2 squared, minus 4 times -2, -3. Okay, so -2 squared is going to be 4. That's going to be -4. Minus 4 times -2 is going to be +8 minus 3. -4 plus +8 is going to be +4. Right? -3, this works out to be +1. This, in fact, is right here at +1. That's what your original looks like. Now, let's do the absolute values. There's our -3. Absolute value, that becomes 1, 2, 3, +3. This over here is, again, -3. Absolute value becomes 1, 2, 3, +3. So here's our original graph. Now, here comes our flip. Right there. And right there. So no longer was that section in the middle the part that's flipped. It's actually these endpoints that were flipped, which makes this kind of interesting because look what happens. At -3, which is our critical point, at -1, which is our other critical point. Let's clean this up. Let me just clean this up first. Let's get rid of this. There's our graph. Okay, -3, like I said before, and -1 are our critical points. So what was flipped? This was flipped. That was flipped. Okay, that was just our original graph. So here we go. Piecewise function, y equals 2. There we go. The part that was normal which was minus x squared minus 4x minus 3, was not flipped. That's why we give it a positive, was the section between minus 3 and minus 1. This x had to be between these guys. Okay, so the x had to be between minus 3 and minus 1, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Then, what was the part that was flipped? This was flipped, that was flipped. So from a point of minus 1 bigger and from minus 3 smaller was flipped. We indicate the flip by putting a minus. The minus x squared minus 4x minus 3, which if you think about it, if we distribute that in, that just changes everything to a positive. Okay, so here we go. Positive x squared, and you can just look at this one up here to kind of tell you which one's been changed. Positive x squared plus 4x plus 3. That new graph happens when this is here. That was the flipped part because we were originally down here. That's the flipped. So bigger than minus 1. So x has to be bigger than minus 1, or this way out here, less than minus 3. So x has to be less than minus 3, and that would be the piecewise for this particular graph.